All right. With that, I would like to take this opportunity to just really quickly introduce our guest because she is an amazing person. She's an amazing mentor at the rec. She has been so supportive since we started, and uh, just just a little story I'd like to share about Alexis, and that's how we met. So we met in a group which it was Village Up, and the goal of that group was to increase accessibility of resources in entrepreneurship, to ensure that people who normally didn't have access to resources would get that access. So minorities, women, people of color, just people who didn't before have access. We were going to work to increase access. And when I met her, I realized we shared a lot of the same goals. We had a very similar mission, and we just started working together. And I have never met anyone else who is as willing to make things happen as Alexis. There's the kind of people who talk about doing things, and then there's those people who actually do things. Alexis is a doer, right? She makes things happen, and it's a rare thing. And I just love working with her. So I don't want to spend too long singing her praises, because you'll get to see for yourself what an amazing person she is, if you haven't already seen that. And yeah, with that, I'll introduce Alexis. Welcome, Alexis.
Thank you, Tanya. My goodness, I thought the Zoom bomber was not going to. It took away my nerves. Now you just brought those nerves back. No, definitely, and I appreciate that welcome. Likewise, I think it's really easy to be supporters of programs and then just want to contribute, but the rec just holds a really special place in my heart, mostly because of the work that Tanya and team do. And for all of the students out there who don't know, like, it is tireless work. It is text messages at 8:39. I think, Tanya, we've had a meeting at 9 p.m.
Yeah.
So
it started at 9. It started.
Yes, like it's literally the work that we do, and it cannot be done without the team around you. And so I am so appreciative of the work you all do. And I'll talk a little bit about myself to start, just real quick, because I think it does matter, and why there's such synergy between the Rec Lab and what we do. So again, my name is Alexis Villanueva. I am the Senior Program Manager of Economic Development with City Heights CDC. CDC standing for Community Development Corporation. And in case you don't know, there are two CDCs in San Diego County. There is City Heights CDC and then Logan Heights CDC. A lot of that work is really just looking at community issues and economically addressing them. So we're talking about something from housing all the way to jobs and entrepreneurship and business development, right? So one thing that makes us a little bit special is, if you think about communities like City Heights or Logan Heights, those are primarily communities of color. Those are historically underserved, historically under-resourced. What makes the synergy between what we do and the Rec Lab so great is Rec Lab is efforts, and all of the work that they're doing is exactly that. It is, how do we get more resources to these communities? How do we allow the opportunities to, even though the Rec Lab is in Miramar, how do we connect residents of City Heights to Logan Heights to these opportunities in Miramar? And I haven't seen that robust, nonstop energy to get that to happen. And so again, I'm very appreciative of everything the Rec is doing to make that happen. And so, when I was asked to speak, I kind of thought about, what can I do to contribute to that? Because one of the things that are occurring in our communities that are underserved is when we think about, how do we create job in the community? And what role does the business play in creating jobs? And for you all are very focused startup entrepreneurs and founders, and your impact is probably one of the biggest. A lot of times when we talk about what we're going to talk about today, it's really focused on our bigger companies, our mid-sized companies, even small businesses, but we never really talk about our startups and our founders. And I really think that your impact is really huge and important. So I'm going to start my sharing.
Okay, perfect. Now, again, if anybody has any questions while we're going along, don't hesitate to just put those questions into the chat.
Yeah, Please do. Okay. So job quality, the role of startups. I am going to talk a little bit about just my career jump so you guys understand why it's really important, because there is a connection there. Just so that you all know, I did not start in business development. I actually grew up in City Heights, and I came from a community and a family where I thought that business development or business in general was for rich people. Never thought that that was something that people in my community could have, nor did I think anybody in my family could have a business. And so my career trajectory went from working in social work, so working actually with individuals who had been involved in the juvenile justice system, the foster youth system, eventually families in the child welfare system. And then after working within all those systems, realizing, well, there's definitely systemic issues of why, you know, a lot of the families that I was working with, a lot of the youth that I was working with came from communities of color, but also the limited opportunities that were afforded to them. And so I couldn't get it out of my mind of why I continually saw this cycle of, you know, service jobs, or not thinking about entrepreneurship, or not creating opportunities in tech for these communities. And so I actually shifted my career to look at workforce development and business development. And I find myself today as a senior program manager of economic development, looking at all those past systems I worked in, bringing them to the table and saying, how can we create a system that looks at opportunity, that creates opportunity from something as small as giving, in this case, the Rec Lab, giving you an opportunity just to sit in a class and learn what it is to create a company that at the end of the day may be huge for a family, may create a legacy for a family that never had that legacy. And again, for many of you, it might mean a lot. For many of you, you might come from that. But for in particular, our communities and a community like City Heights, that is not seen a whole lot. So all of this work is really important. I want to hone in on job quality again, like I said, because I think a lot of you are going to play a really, really fundamental role in this. It is a conversation. It is a conversation that's happening nationally. And so one of the things that you'll notice, the conversation on national levels, we talk about job quality in terms of service jobs, right? So most people will talk about, well, we need better wages, we need living wages, right? And you'll hear that a lot. And that's great. And I definitely think that that's a conversation that needs to be had. But when I'm thinking about job quality, I'm thinking about it in its entirety, from the entrepreneur to the lawyer, right? Like, what do those look like? What do those indicators look like? So I'm kind of going to take you on that conversation. And just so that you all know, I'm a conversationalist, so please ask questions. I'm going to take breaks in between me talking, so please do feel free to just interject and ask a question. This is something I love to do, and to specifically talk about systemic change and job quality, and just really dignity and respect in the work that we do. So I do tend to get caught up in it, but let me know if you have a question. So where we're going to start again, I don't love definitions, and I actually hate PowerPoints, but we're just going to get to the definition of job quality, and really just coming from an entrepreneurial context, your role as a startup or as a business, and then potential next steps for you, because what tends to happen sometimes with startups and businesses is you don't anticipate how successful you're going to be. A lot of times we underestimate how successful we're going to be, and then you get to launch and immediately you're looking at creating capacity. And right before that step, it's really good to think about your role and your impact in creating jobs in our community. So we'll start with a job quality definition. According to Aspen Institute, job quality means encompassing and having a voice in one's workplace and opportunity to shape one's life. And I'm going to stop real quick right there, because so one thing is Aspen Institute is a trailblazer in talking about job quality. So if you ever get a chance to look at their website, please do, because they give a lot of toolkits and step-by-steps. But there is an old way of thinking that, and also quite frankly, a falsehood, that there is such thing as work-life balance. And so I'm sure most of you have had a job before. You've gone into a job, you said, okay, from 9 to 5 or whatever your working hours are, this is me doing work, right? And the company looks at you and says, this is what you're committed to from 9 to 5. After 5 p.m., work is work, home is home, right? And none of that meshes between each other. And that's kind of an old way of thinking. It's kind of a way of having a falsehood that there is such a thing as work-life balance. I tend to believe there's not. And I'm sure most of you have had a job will know that if something happens at home, that's definitely going to bleed over into, excuse me, if something happens at home, it's definitely going to bleed over to work. And then if something happens at work, it's going to bleed over to home. And so when we think about job quality, we think about how are we creating a culture? How are we creating a job that's going to be meaningful to this person? That's going to outright, first thing in the morning when you walk through the door, first thing in the morning when you open your laptop, first thing in the morning when you are saying hi to a customer, is going to provide you with respect, is going to provide you with a meaningful contribution, is going to make you feel valued in that, right? And when we do that, we are encompassing life at home and we're encompassing work at work. And so I hope that as you move through your journey, that you keep that in mind, that the same things that we look for in our daily work, in our daily jobs, and might even be the reason why you all went into entrepreneurship is because you had a horrible boss, is what you want to start creating for your business. I'm gonna stop there real quick. Is there any questions at all?
So I haven't seen any questions in the chat. I do have a time check. We have about 28 minutes rather left on the clock, but yeah, no questions in the chat yet. But I wanted to say one thing. Just a comment. Agreed. It's so important as entrepreneurs that we start thinking now about how we're going to build our companies in such a way that we are affecting people's lives positively. And so you have so much power and responsibility as entrepreneurs. That's all.
Definitely. So I just want to go over a few indicators, and I think you all will hear this as you're moving through this. Most people that you hear in the conversation, they'll talk about wage, and wage is really important. And I don't want to undermine how important wage is. For entrepreneurs, that's a little bit tougher for you all, and I understand that, especially when you're starting out with seed money. But just so that you all know and keep this in mind, that the cost of living in San Diego is around $17.60 to $18 an hour. So if you're, let's say you start your first job, or let's say you want to bring on a coder, right? And we did this before, Tanya. You wanted to bring on a coder and you wanted to provide them an opportunity as a contractor. Really, you could define job quality in your company by saying, I can pay you $20 an hour for 20 hours a month. You are defining job quality there, that you are saying you are valued more than what cost of living is in San Diego right now, which is 18. And that's a big deal, because at the off the bat, your employee is now saying, okay, great. They see me as someone who deserves to be paid at a level where I can live in San Diego. So that is a big deal. And again, we can talk about wage because it does, it does deviate, but I want to be clear that nationally you'll hear wage a whole lot. Benefits, obviously benefits is going to be long-term, and we talk about that with bigger companies, you're going to hear that. But childcare is another one. And I will kind of touch on that just because after the pandemic, a lot of women had to leave the workforce. It was disastrous to our communities of color, and specifically because childcare was one of those needed elements. And it's been for probably the last 20 years, but businesses didn't want to even have that conversation. So as you're starting out on your career in entrepreneurship in your business, please do think about family-friendly practices. Please do think about what that means to have your children at work. Remote work is tremendous for a business. Remote work has allowed a lot of women to stay in the workforce. Career development and leadership development. That is a really big one. And I will say that for your startup companies, that is probably the most feasible. That is probably the most feasible because it doesn't cost a whole lot of money, if not at all, right? If you are a CEO, if you are a founder, and you decide, I want to bring on a contractor and they're fresh out of college, they're fresh out of a boot camp, but I also want to be their mentor, you are already creating a career development pathway for them. You're already creating a leadership pathway for them. And I guarantee you that's going to go ions to giving your company, your startup, so much credibility in the startup world. And so, I encourage you to look at that, whatever that is. Safety. And so this is a big one. And across the country, we talk about safety. And so, and even in the definition, it talks about safety. Safety can mean a lot of things for every individual. And so I want to be clear that safety could mean how we talk to each other. Safety could mean how we go about on Zoom together, but really thinking about that in the context of the work that you're doing. I've been a part of groups before, and we've conducted surveys, and safety tends to pop up. And even when you think that you've covered all of the main points in your company, that's just something you always want to come back to and make sure that everybody feels at most safe in their workspace.
And so we're talking not just about physical safety here, you're talking about psychological safety and feeling safe in many number of ways.
And many number of ways, and accepted, right? Because again, when we're talking about company culture, that's all a part of who you're working with, right? And even representation, right? Like I would feel safe if I saw others who looked like me and represented me, right? So there's a bigger conversation to have, but and again, I don't want to tell you exactly, job quality 101 what you need to do for your business, but I definitely think if you're cognizant of these things, it's definitely going to come up as you're moving through your journey. And then the research will tell you outcomes are really huge, right? And again, most of you, if you've had a job before, you probably could go back to what was really awful about the job and what was great about the job, right? And a lot of times when we leave a job, it's just because there were just so many overwhelmingly bad things, right? And the cost of retention is ridiculously skyrocketing. And a lot of businesses and a lot of industries haven't figured out why, but the Googles have. Yep. Right? The Googles have, and some of the smaller businesses have. And so, really, really thinking about the individuals that you bring on board, understanding your individuals. For my own, I do have a team. And so I will share that, weekly, I'm taking time to ask how my team's doing, because literally it's the smallest thing I can do. How are you doing? How's the family? Right? It's not that I don't worry about the family because that's after 5. I definitely worry about the family, right? Because that is my job to make sure of that. So retention's a huge one. Job satisfaction's another one. And a lot of the job quality studies that you'll read out there, it's really telling you how much do you like your job. And honestly, most of the businesses will look at wages and say, well, I don't want to pay that high of wage, but then I expect that my job satisfaction is going to be higher. Well, they go hand in hand. If your wage isn't high, but you have a great company culture, your wage isn't going to be an issue. People are going to love to want to work for you. And I say that because I came from social work. And if you all don't know, social work, we're not making millions.
Right. Right. There's other reasons that people are working other than that paycheck. And that social work is such a great example. I love this. There is so much research out there that supports this, that can just validate what she's saying. And as entrepreneurs, yes, we need to pay a wage that shows our employees that we care about them, but there are other things we can do as well.
There are a ton of other things. And I think, again, like, my first job, and I always say this, my first job was a management job and I got paid $10.50 an hour. But I loved that, and I was coming out of college. That was my first job, running a boys probation group home, $10.50 an hour. But I loved what I did. And my management was supportive of me. And I was able to create, and I was able to be innovative in strategy. And that wasn't a part of the job description. That was just what they said as a part of the culture. So please keep in mind of, when we're thinking about these jobs and how you create your first job satisfaction it has some correlation to wage. But if we think about intrinsic versus extrinsic value systems and how people go to work and why they go to work every day, those are really important reasons why we want to assess what our culture is doing for our workers. And then vice versa, because if you invest in your workers, you're going to get back a ton of good work and productive work. And this last one, systemic change. And I think that's probably why, as senior program manager of economic development, it is so important to me when I talk about communities like City Heights, like Logan Heights, like Southeast San Diego, very much communities that are focused on underserved populations, on individuals that I worked with, like justice involved individuals, youth who, got in trouble but have redeemed themselves, youth that came from the foster care system, youth that don't know what they want to do. There's a lot of youth out there right now that don't know what they want to do. And there's not a whole lot of avenues for them. But what ends up happening is, with lack of opportunity, they never ever see their way out of that. And so you all out there right now, as founders, can easily give a pathway. And I'm not saying give. You could easily create an opportunity and help to build that opportunity out so that these individuals can see that they actually have a pathway to do that. And I think that that's where your role is absolutely amazing. I kind of want to throw some figures out there. Oh, wait, let's see if we have any questions. Do we have any questions,
So
Tanya?
I did see some comments in the chat. There was one question. I think we can maybe address it a little bit later about working with people from different countries. I think at the end we can address that. But if there wasn't anything else pressing? No, I think everything else is just comments, so we can address at the end. Yeah.
Okay, perfect. So I did want to throw some figures out there because I think it's important to understand your role has huge impact. And I think sitting there, you may not realize that you may think the impact is just solely in your company, but it actually is impactful to the community that you're in, to the county that you're in, to the state that you're in, and will eventually be a national impact. And so these are numbers that were mind-blowing to me, and they might be mind-blowing to you, but I focused on women because, again, in this post-pandemic time, more women have left the workforce, and particularly more women of color have left the workforce. So Latinas make 55 cents on a dollar compared to a white male, right? And Black women make 63 cents on the dollar compared to a white male. Combined, we get paid 82 cents compared to a white male. And I'm sure those numbers are going to be drastically different after we start getting research after the pandemic. Mm-hmm. And I am one of those people who think about, glass half full. So my thought behind this is, yes, this is absolutely terrible. When we think about what the difference in money could be, 38 more months of childcare for a Latina, 31 more months of childcare for a Black woman, of more than a full additional year of tuition for women at a 4-year public university, right? That's how much money we're talking about. But if I want to think about this positively, every semester the Rec Lab has founders that come in. Every semester, I mean, Tanya, I follow every single entrepreneur that comes out of your school. We have some very successful entrepreneurs coming out of the Rec Lab.
Really successful, yep.
Imagine if just one of those entrepreneurs said, you know what, how do I sit back and write a job description for the Black women or the Latina women or the youth that lost their job last year? Mm-hmm. What skills do they come with? How do we create that job? It doesn't have to happen tomorrow, but what can I do? How can I create that job?
And I love that you're saying this. We can make a huge difference. And if we incorporate this into the planning phase, if you think about these things in the recruitment, not the selection. At selection, it's too late. You're past where you should have been. But way back when you're recruiting and you're building this in, if you think about these things, you can make a huge difference. I love this. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
So if just one from your class, if just 5 from your class, we've already created, and I've seen this, I think you've had the semesters now, but let's say we've created 20 jobs, right? The 20 jobs for this population, for these populations that are disproportionately out of the workforce, disproportionately looped out. Mm-hmm. Again, it's not so much about, and I know that there's a bigger conversation about systemic racism, and that's definitely important. And I want to say that that's why this is important. But the idea that you all have such huge impact in what's going to come to the future. The other part of that is, the workforce is changing. This is your workforce, right? So all of you out there who are thinking about how do I create jobs and what am I looking at? And to the comment about, working with populations that are foreign born or immigrants. Yeah, that's going to be a change, and that's going to be different of how we conduct business. But absolutely, that is going to be your workforce. And so I would love for the rec entrepreneurs to say, you know what, I'm going to get a jump start on this, because at the end of the day, this is where we're moving towards. And how do we do that? So not only can you make impact, not only is the impact going to be huge for the community, but in return, you're also going to get a huge return on your investment, because this is your workforce and you're honestly prepared to do it.
Oh, and honestly, I always have people who come back to me and they say, well, I have to look at my bottom line, Tanya. I have to look at how much money I'm making. I have to make sure that I'm making my business sustainable and that it's going to last. Well, yeah, that's what you're doing when you're paying people well. You're creating a workforce of people who are so committed to you and to helping you achieve your goals that they're not going to go anywhere. When you create a company that people want to work for and with, they're gonna help you get to the moon if you want to go to the moon, right? They're going to be behind you 100%. It's expensive to continually train and hire and have a revolving door. I venture to say companies like Walmart, they probably pay just as much, if not more, than companies like Costco or one of the companies that does it right. So it's expensive to do it wrong. You're going to make more money by doing it right. Yeah.
Yeah, no, Tanya, and that's again, understandably, the investment is bigger than the investment at when you start. And I will say that, like, there's a lot of research to show that, retention, you're saving money, but to Tanya's point, they will get you to the moon. Absolutely. Loyal workers to your companies, the investment, knowing that they're coming in, part of that definition was the contribution that they provide to your company. When they know they can provide a contribution to your company, that is absolutely huge for them. And so, again, your impact is going to be huge. You have, one of the great things is I've been doing this work with businesses that have been established for years. And over the years, I can give nods to companies that have done it well, but they've done it well, but they've had to start over. The great thing that you all have is you're just starting. Right. You get to create this. You get to figure out how you want to do it, in what way you're going to do it, how you want to present it, what that's going to look like. You have an amazing opportunity right now for yourself.
That's the freedom of entrepreneurship, right? It's your
exactly.
Do what you want. I love it. Yeah.
So I'm going to go but little steps of like where you can start, because this is where I've seen kind of it come to fruition for a lot of companies. Biggest thing. So when I've worked for, like I said, when I've helped recruit for bigger companies, when I've helped go in there and work on job quality with companies, my first question is usually, what's your company culture? And believe it or not, I would say a good number of them do not know their company culture. And it is hard because you want me to go find an employee for you, but you don't know what defines your company. And so I look to all of you to kind of ask yourself these questions. What do you believe in, right? What are some of the things that you believe really solely? It might not even have to be about your business. What do you believe in? Do you, I believe the sky is blue, so I'm going to stick to it's blue. And so I like things to be blue, right? Like whatever it is that you are passionate about is going to show itself up in your company some way. So ask yourself what you believe in. What are your value systems? Because again, it's going to show yourself and how you are as an employer, how you are in your company, how you're setting rules, how you're setting, what your contribution is, your impact. So research now is showing that the new workforce is really concerned about the impact and sustainability, right? So if you're creating a job and you're looking to hire a new coder, a new website designer, a new marketing person, and you start thinking about, well, to Tanya's point, the Walmarts. What's Walmart's impact? Can anybody say what Walmart's impact is? They definitely contribute money to different things, but that's not necessarily their impact. And I would probably argue that their impact isn't great right now. So think about your impact, because that's how you're going to get people wanting to work with you. And what I've seen happen is I've seen a lot of individuals come and say, I'll work for this company for free. And there's a lot of them out there who will definitely say, I'll work for Apple for free. I'll work for Google for free. And that's a tough time right now because people need to get paid. But I've seen a lot of individuals say, I'll work for these companies for free. And it's because they want to understand and they want to be part of that impact. That contribution is really, really important. And that's why I put the last, what's your contribution? There are quite a few companies in San Diego, Viasat being one, where they actually have a social impact department, right? And so I would ask a lot of you to think about that. Once you get established, whether you know that after launch you're going to be hugely successful, you're going to get seed money, what do you want your ultimate contribution to be to your community? Right? That could be Miramar College community. That can mean the community, if you have a storefront, that can mean the community that you come from. But what is your contribution going to be? Because again, going back to Tanya's point, any worker will take you to the moon when you create an opportunity, but when they hear that you believe in this, that you want your company's impact to be this, and the individual contribution of the company will be this, that's when people start working for you, because that is really, really important. Any questions at all? I see
I did see one question in the chat. Somebody was asking about what are some specific questions that you could actually ask to people in the recruitment phase to attract them, or to attract the right kind of people to work in your company. And I could address that, or if you have any thoughts.
Yeah, if you want to, Tanya, go ahead.
Well, I was just going to say, I think more than the questions that you're asking them, it's about actually getting the right people to actually apply for your company. So it's about letting people know what kind of a company you are, and then going out there and going to the communities and meeting the people where they are. So if you look at your workforce and say, hey, we need more women working in our company, then go to where women are, right? Write posts to women designed to actually get them to come to you. That was my 2 cents.
And Tanya, that's a big one. And I'll kind of give you all kind of an example. So the pandemic happened, and there's an industry that's really struggling right now. Hospitality is hugely struggling. And, you know, I've gotten a lot of calls because this is the work that I've done. So I've gotten a lot of calls of how can we get more people to get back to work? And what it ends up coming back to isn't, and then this is kind of what's been out there, is people just want to sit home and live off of unemployment. And the reality is it's actually not that. It's actually not that. That's not a whole lot of money that they're receiving on unemployment. It actually is the culture they're coming back to. It actually is the environment they're coming back to. And the reality is wages are in there, but it's not all that important for those. And I'll give you an example. There was a gentleman who owns a restaurant in Pacific Beach. And he literally said, in order to get my employees back, I told them that I would pay for their tuition to community college if they came back. That's it, they came back. So the reality is, you know, whatever worker that you were looking for, whatever, and again, this is, as an entrepreneur, you get to create that, which is what I want to keep empowering you to look at. You get to create the worker that you want, but at the same time, like Tanya said, if you want more women, right, you got to consider where is the women's status right now, right? Those statistics show where they are on pay gap. But are women, you know, what about childcare? Is it family friendly? Can I do remote work, you know, 2 out of the 5 days so she doesn't have to pay childcare for 2 of the days, right? Like think about creatively. You have so many options to do that. And I think, I again, coming out of the Rec Lab, I think you all have so many mentors and so many resources to plug into that you can definitely make this work for you. So another thing I'll say is, nothing worse, and I've had this happen, is I've had companies come to me and say, okay, I want this type of worker. This is who I want. Can you please go find me somebody to do this? And I say, great, can you send me a job description? And they Google, that's what they'll do. They'll go Google job description and they'll send me the Google job description. But then they want a unicorn.
Right.
And it's so hard to be realistic and say, look, like, one, here's the workforce that we're working with now. 2, you want to start looking about creating opportunity that others are not creating because the workforce is highly competitive, right? And 3, like, we don't have a job description. You're Googling a job description and sending that to me. And when I ask you about environment, you don't know environment, right? You don't know your own environment. So I say this to you. I've also worked with startups where, again, pre-launch happens, the anticipation of launch happens, hugely successful, a lot of seed money coming in. All of a sudden, you got to bring on capacity because things are starting to move. And again, I say, you know, where's your job description? Oh, I don't know, but I need a marketer, I need a job developer, I need a coder, and it's like, no, let's create these now. Because you get to choose, you get to be creative, you get to be innovative of what you're looking for in your company.
And hopefully all of you who are in my classes and at the Rec, you know, that's one of the 3 pillars of things that we do. We build out our business operations, including our manuals, our job descriptions, our all of those things that we need so that we aren't just caught unawares and then unable to scale. So yes, I hate hearing that this is happening, but I also love that you're saying this so people can see it's so important. And I promise I'm not just making you do busy work.
Well, no, and I love that, Tanya, that you're doing that, because I work with mid-sized to large businesses, and they still struggle with job descriptions. And I didn't put it on here, but there is a website, skillful.org, and I can put it in the chat. But it essentially helps you create a job description, but it helps you create a job description that is not leaning towards what sometimes we unconsciously do, is create job descriptions that sound like they favor males to females, or sound like they are not all inclusive. And so skillful.org helps us to create that with kind of this inclusivity perspective. So
Skillful. Okay, thank you. Okay.
And I'll say lastly, this is something I've worked on, Tanya, we've worked on it together. Open yourself up for a test run. And for you startups, there are a lot of opportunities to do this. Get an intern. Do some R&D as you're going through, as you're navigating this entrepreneurial experience. There's a lot of programs out there that allow you to do that. And I've worked with a lot of businesses and said, have you ever onboarded before? Have you ever, if you know your company, if you want your company culture to be this way, have you thought about how you would execute this or that? And interns are a great way to experience that. And I often say, but give also the flexibility in that intern to give you that positive feedback and also negative feedback, because you want to be able to implement, you want to be able to scale, you want to be able to test run all of the things that you want to do in your company. And I would even gather to say that there are a lot of internship programs out there that have high schoolers, and people tend to stray away from that. Take on a high schooler, because they're going to tell you the truth. They're going to tell you the truth. And you want to know the truth about your company. You really, really do. And then the other part of that is, and Tanya, you've worked with high schoolers before, they are very innovative and they are very thought-provoking. And so if you really want to be ready for that new workforce, they can give you a leg up on that. So I would say definitely open yourself up to that.
Yeah, I was very opposed to working with high schoolers before I actually started doing it, and I'm converted. I've changed my opinion entirely. So yeah.
Well, and then the other thing is the programs out there don't require any risk to the business.
Yeah.
So think about that too. Like, you don't have to worry about liability. You don't have to worry about all those other things, because most of the companies that do that, or most of the organizations that do that, cover all of that for you. Mm-hmm. So definitely think about that. Lastly, once you get that feedback, be willing to make that change. Be willing to, be intentional about those changes. Be willing to hear that feedback. I always say be agile, because that is the type of environment we're in. This new workforce, whatever that may be, communities of color, youth, even our aging population is part of the new workforce. They will give you contributions and they will provide for you, but we also need to be agile and be able to move and understand that not everybody's the same, and not everybody's contribution is the same. I firmly believe, and I know we touched on this earlier, Tanya, that you're going to invest on your end in terms of creating your business and creating that culture for your company, but they're also going to give that investment. And I solely believe when you start with the investment, they will give that back. And that's going to be a huge, that's going to be a testament and an even bigger success for you. Let's see, I think that's the last slide. Oops, yep. If anybody has any questions or wants to reach out or chat, please, by all means, that's my contact information. I've been around the world a couple of times, but I love this work. I am so dedicated to helping our entrepreneurs. I'm so dedicated to preparing everybody for I tend to forecast a lot of things, and I recognize that our workforce isn't going to look the same. It isn't going to look like me. I was taught to create a resume and walk into the storefront with a resume, and that's not the world we live in now, right? So please, by all means, let me know if there's any help that you need. I'm truly indebted to the Rec Lab. You're doing amazing work, and I definitely could not do the work in City Heights without you all.
Thank you so much, Alexis. And you're good at time. Look at that. It's 5:50, like on the nose. That was amazing, amazing. And all of you, I know we have some students here from the rec and from other classes, but those of you who are in the incubator, we will have opportunities as you build out your companies and you have all your manuals, your job descriptions, org charts, for you to work with people like Alexis, to get you help onboarding some interns and use some of the programs out there that actually can help pay for some of this, and help you with the liability, as Alexis was saying. But in the meantime, we're learning, we're practicing, and we're doing, and you guys are doing great. And Alexis's information is here. She's also she's around a lot. She's comes to a lot of our events, and so do reach out if you have questions to her. You know, you can always reach out to me as well with questions. And we have a couple minutes left that we can answer questions now if anybody has any. Does anyone have any questions that they'd like to ask while we're all here together?
Did you ever get to Philip's question from earlier? I know you said you wanted
No.
to.
Yeah, no, we didn't. So that question, it was about working with people from different countries. What he was asking, you know, what kind of remuneration, how many employees should we be working with, or from outside of the U.S., foreign born? Should it be based on each location where they are? Should it be based on the company's location? Where, you know, what kind of guidelines can you give on that, or if you have any?
Yeah, definitely. So knowing that City Heights is primarily immigrant refugees, and we, just so that you know, give you context, we speak about 52 languages now.
Oh,
So definitely from around the world. You know, I always encourage entrepreneurs to definitely think about hiring immigrant and refugee, just for the basic idea that if you want to scale and become a globalized business, that if you have an immigrant refugee on board, they will give you such insight in their home country, in their foreign country. And it's hard to say sometimes. I think people think, well, a consultant is not an employee, but a consultant is your employee. The employee can give you so much insight as to what's happening in those countries, how the economy works in those countries. What I will say is, and actually I had a company come to me, and we do this a lot in City Heights, of, well, we do want to hire immigrant refugee, and we also want to make space. And in this particular company wanted to make space in sub-Saharan Africa. So what would you say? And literally, I could not be the expert on that. So I got a couple of residents together and I said, hey, do you want to talk to this company and maybe give some insight as to what that looks like? And what is culturally important to actually go to that country and have a conversation, right? Because that's the other part of it, is when you're thinking about becoming a globalized business, when you're thinking about bringing on immigrant refugees, there's a lot of cultural context that has to be taken into account. And I think sometimes, like, most people be like, oh my goodness, that too. It's really just a question. It's really just a question of, like, you know, what works for you, what makes you comfortable, what makes you feel safe, what do you enjoy about this job? What can you provide, right? What excites you? Like, it's really just a conversation. And I think,
insight, yeah,
like, and I think that is fundamental. I will say too, recruitment is changing a lot. And so people are moving away from that resume. There are definitely jobs where hard skills are necessary. So you definitely want to look at credentials and things like that. But having a conversation with employees goes a ton more than actually sitting down and looking at a list of questions and saying, you know, tell me about a time that tell me about a time that you created, I don't know, like that you did a group project, right? Like, right? Like those are behavioral questions. Those definitely give you some fundamental insights. But having a conversation with someone is so much more important for you founders out there. And I've said this before, and I used to work with a couple of drone companies, and one of them was open to hiring anybody. They didn't have to have a credential. They didn't have to go to college. And he literally said to me, I just need to connect with them. Send me people I connect with. And I said, right, I love that. We can't bottle that. We can't teach that, right? So he's like, so as long as I can have a conversation, I can see where they're coming from, I can see where they want to go, I'm open. And I'll be honest with you all, like, that's success. They're going to get employees that are really, really excited to work for them. And likewise, they're going to get to the moon because the employees are going to be excited by that. So I would definitely, you all know this, you're not risk averse in entrepreneurship, right? Like take that leap. And one thing that I will say, and I don't love this practice, but it is out there. I've seen businesses open a job description and see what kind of applicants they get. And by the applicants that they get, they're kind of able to assess how they're being received. And that gives you huge insight on what you are seeing out there. And I've seen companies have interviews over the phone just to hear what people are seeing when they're reading that job description, when they look at a website. So I would definitely look to test run those in that way.
Right. Yeah, I was just going to say, I know we're almost totally out of time, but I was going to say that, yes, like it's changed even just now from 3 months ago hiring. I have a job that I'm hiring for right this moment, and the applicants that I got are totally different than I got 3 months ago. And those were different from the ones 3 months before that. So you do kind of have to let the workforce sort of guide you. And right now there are a lot of people who want to be inspired. They want to do something meaningful. They realize that life is about a lot more than just the paycheck, and a job is about a lot more than just the paycheck. And so yeah, we can do a lot of amazing things. Anyways, we're totally out of time now. Alexis, would you like to take us away? Leave us with any final parting thought?
No, I appreciate it. Please let me know. Like, again, Tanya, you have my contact information. Please let me know. I can help. I've been in this business for a while. So any way that I can help, please let me know. And if I can't help, I definitely can connect you somewhere that will. So I had a great time. Thank you so much.
Yes, thank you, Alexis. Appreciate it. Thank you, everyone, for being here. We'll see you all at the next workshop.
Thank you so much, Alexis.
Bye-bye. Have a good night.
Hi, everyone. My name is Tanya Hertz, and I'm the director of the Regional Entrepreneurship Center, the Rec Innovation Lab at San Diego Miramar College. And I'd like to thank our partners at this time and give a special thanks to SDSU's Lavin Center, the SDSU Zip Launchpad. We'd like to thank the California Entrepreneurship Educators Conference. Also like to thank Harness, the Brink SBDC at USD, San Diego Unified Schools. We'd also like to thank School of Entrepreneurship and Technology, High Tech High, the Regional Advisory Committee, Alex Waters at the Jacobs Center, Connect All, 21 IQ Labs, Startup Quest, Productified. I'd like to thank Course Key and Tech Coast Angels. Thank you to Village Up, City Heights Development Corporation, San Diego Angel Conference, Startup San Diego, SBDC, SCORE San Diego, We Are Kingdom, New Media Rights, San Diego Tech Hub, Origin 63, Ambrosio 15, OmniSync, Optima Office, Proven Recruiting, Craft Leadership, GSNL Consulting. Thank you to all of our partners. We couldn't do what we do without you. Thank you.